It's so great to have you join me on today's edition of International Forum. My name is Philip Omo-Yukbon, where we take our time to look at the policies of the foreign countries, basically looking at today's topic. We will be looking at the move or the whole issues surrounding the former president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, having a move to run again in 2024. Well, you know the controversies that trailed while he was in office and all that panned out in the Capitol Hills, January 6th, the insurrection, and his act of playing it down that it all went out of control. The protests went out of control. And looking at this, the need for him to come back in 2024, what are the steps he's taking in that direction? Is he saying that he's coming back in 2024? And if he does, what could be the reactions of the Republicans? Don't forget, there are other prospective persons that are looking forward to having that election, you know, and coming up for that race on who's going to be the next president of America in 2024. You understand that if this election pans through and he takes it up and wins the election, it means that possibly there could be a lot that the world will also be getting ready to welcome, looking at the Trumpy policies that really it comes with. Well, discussing this vital topic with me, starting from my extreme left, as I always like to do, is a legal practitioner, and his name is Barrister Obakolo Emmanuel. Thanks for joining me.
Good afternoon.
And next to him is a social media influencer, a political scientist, I call him, and he is what's his name again?
Frank
Ehiosun. Thanks for joining me, Frank.
Pleasure is mine.
Okay, let's look at the whole issue, controversies that may be trailing his coming back as the president or even running for the 2024 election in the United States. Will it come as a surprise to you?
Not at all. There's actually anything that will come from Trump that will be a surprise. Because Trump himself is a surprise. So whatever he does is within that purview of taking people to places that they never imagined. So that's why I said it's not going to come as a surprise in any way.
Okay.
Fortunately, he has thrown tidbits in the air as in indicative of the fact that he has such interest.
Okay.
You know, Trump has a peculiar trait. Some folks in the U.S. who are experts in human psychology call him, in quotes, a man who operates like a mob boss. He says things in some very unique ways. He's dangerously smart. Dangerously smart, because even when he wants to say something that is ill, in quotes, he will put it in such a way that in legal terms you may not be able to hold him down quite, but listeners, those who heard him, got the message clearly.
Okay.
So you can deliver a message without phraseologies that are indicative of contravening the law. That's why I said he's dangerously smart. His niece wrote a book about him where she titled the book, The Family Gave the World the Most Dangerous Man. And there's no contesting the fact that it reflects such traits. Everything about him is a pointer to it. From 2016 till date, I feel for the Republican Party in the US. Right now, they are the greatest victim of Trump's onslaught. As at the time Trump indicated interest for presidency, the bulk of the Republican machine, in quotes, didn't take him serious. They just looked at him as one of those outsiders who were just there to do his usual thing as a media hype. He's a media man. He's been quite popular on so many shows, nationally and internationally. So they just look at him from that standpoint. That this guy has just come with his usual razzmatazz to bamboozle folks and add some feathers to his media image as a one-time aspirant. But the guy was, like I affirmed earlier, dangerously smart. He knew where he was headed. He just came into the party. He had a clear idea of the, I'll call it latent desire, some latent proclivities in quite a majority of the white Americans, if I can use that term to describe them. So He simply struck it in a way that they did not anticipate and woke up that latency to such a point where it's now a threat to what America symbolizes the world over. 2016, he kept saying one stuff after the other. Even before the election, he was saying so many things that, like I affirmed earlier, the Republicans were taken by surprise. If they were told from the outset that Trump could end up being the candidate, they would have adjusted the modalities of emergence to ensure that it doesn't get through. Or possibly align quite to make sure that such a personality does not become the representative of the Republican ideal. But they didn't take him serious. That's how he overruled them and he became the president. He went on from there to sell the same character trait to the entire United States of America. See what we have today. Okay, in the history of America, there's not been a president that has been so enmeshed in crisis and controversies, and yet there's no modicum of shame. The more danger that he seemed to be entangled in, the more emboldened the guy is without giving a hoot about whose us is God. And any man who told such line is a danger to even his immediate sphere, not to talk of humanity at large. Of course, as a president of America, check out from 1776 or thereabout till date, there's never been a president, he's the 45th, there's never been a president that had, within his he's among the few, he's the 14th president in American history that served just one tenure. But there's never been one that had people within that time frame being indicted to the extent that Trump has people, so many are serving prison terms presently. He was able to use his office, of course, unfortunately, before he left, to grant a number of them pardon. Not less than about 12 or 15 key, not just ordinary folks, former campaign manager, former deputy campaign manager, former security advisor, national security advisor, Michael Flynn, his former personal attorney, Michael Cohen. How many? Papa Bodos, quite a number, I can't even quite a list. Now, on and on and on, there are even a number of people who will still be indicted. Because in his administration, there were about 5 core executives who were indicted. Some of them, their cases are still ongoing. So there's never been a president that has such show of disdain, as in things that will make a president wear the garb of shame. But this guy just doesn't give a hoot.
Well,
in the history of America, there are 3 presidents that have been impeached. He's the first president that has been impeached twice by Congress. Though none has been able to go through Senate in terms of this stuff. But in the same history of America, it is in Trump's impeachment proceeding that they have the highest number of Senate bipartisan votes for the impeachment of the president. It has never happened. When the second impeachment was over insurrection, the first one was over obstruction of Congress. So this second one, there were 7 members of Senate who participated in the process. That's never happened in the history of America. That shows how dissatisfied the people are ordinarily. But unfortunately, the guy has an overbearing personality that compels them to go towards the tide. Now, I'll say one thing. You see, Trump gives credence to the saying that it's a sociological truth or a sociological theory accepted so long a time ago, that in every society, majority of citizens are conformist. So in Trump, the fact that people conform to what they look up to, in his presidency, he gave credence to the fact that there are things that are in America that even Americans did not know. Because in him, the best and the worst of certain traits, I use the best in contest, came out from the American system. And they are still struggling with it today. And it's made America to look like a third world country. See the election. How can a president, as far back as 2019, over a year before the election, he was already campaigning and he was telling the people that he would only lose if the election is rigged. Even in third world countries, no president will make such assertion.
It's very obvious that his style of administration then, they really greet your taste.
No, it's not my taste.
So it appealed to you.
No, it's not about my taste. They are universal standards. They are benchmarks. Even in the worst of societies, they are basic benchmarks. Anybody that swims in the pool of sanity will know that this guy is towing a line that is contrapuntal to the principles of nature. And the entire American system took it for granted. How can a president who presides over the supreme, in quote, democracy the world over, before elections, he is saying that he would only lose if the election is rigged, and he wants to be taking over the entire system. That was a point out to the fact that this guy is a dictator who ordinarily does not believe in the election. Because in any election, you come out with the standpoint or with the idea that if you lose, you go. If you don't, if you win, so be it. From the founding days of democracy, it dates back to about 500 years before Christ, the days of Solon in Greece. When people go to campaign for offices, as the culture was, it wasn't so popular because it was representative. That's where they gave popularity to representative democracy. In the days of Solon, when people contest and they win or lose, you see the person that lost the election going to meet the person that won and correcting him with a viewpoint that I contested because I wanted to make things better for the people. And from what I see in the manifesto you put forth, the ideal is very clear. So your victory is my victory. He convinced him because he knows that the victory is about the people and not about the person per se, but what he wants to do for the people. That's how democracy is run. But for Trump to come from this standpoint of, if I do not win, the election is rigged, that ordinarily is supposed to, if they were misguided, should be screened out or disqualified before the time. I think that could have been considered.
Okay, thank you for your articulation in that respect. Well, basically, when I started, I really spoke about the controversies that may be between his legacies, and as smart as he said he is, and as dangerous as the style that he presents, what do you see about his making this issue concerning coming back in 2024? Because though he has not really announced verbatim that he is running, but there seems to be the likelihood. Do you see that as a way of testing the waters on his popularity?
Yes, I do. And considering the character we are talking about, Trump is a special comical character. It's a character that when you least expected him to swim against the tide and succeed, the man does.
So it's unpredictable, you mean?
Yes, it's unpredictable. It's just like my co-analyst said, it's one character that so many persons in his first tenure or before his first tenure, took him for granted. They looked at him as somebody who cannot get what he wants. But one special attribute of the man called Trump is that he knows what he wants, he knows how to get what he wants, and he knows when to get what he wants.
But that didn't pull through in the previous election.
He does.
He wasn't able to get it.
He did. The man got what he wanted. And whether you believe it or not, whether I believe it or not, he succeeded in his own style.
Okay.
Trump succeeded.
And also came with the blame game that the process was rigged.
Yes, because he's that comical character like I did describe him from the beginning, from the outset. The man is somebody that will test the waters and wait for the outcome of it. And so far, in his first tenure, he did tested the water and nothing happened. The man, remember, is the proverbial or the biblical good man, so to speak. To the extent that he came, fulfilled part of the scripture. But some of us didn't take that as anything to go with. He now came, announced Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and waited for what will happen.
Okay.
So nothing happened.
So that's part of fulfilling the scripture?
Yes.
What part of scripture?
The scripture has it that before now, Jerusalem is not the capital of Israel. Tel Aviv is the capital of Israel.
Okay.
But the scripture prophesied that come sometime in the future, that will come to pass.
So that could be the reason why it came to power.
Yes, the man is a special breed, so to speak. He's somebody that, do you know, just now, the Russian-Ukrainian war, so many books writers are saying that if Trump is to be the president of America, this wouldn't have happened. And I want to tell you that they are correct. He has a way of getting what he wants. He would have somehow, because he's like the Putin is his like. He knows how to go into people like that and tell him, look, young man, we don't need this just now. Let's do it the other way around. Moreover, they are friends. So he has a way of doing all of this. So I see him I compare him even with this little information making the rounds about his purported coming back as the president of America or contesting to be the president of America. I now likened him to the former president of America called Grover Cleveland. That man ruled between 1895 to 1889. 1885 to 1889. Okay. Then he was dethroned by Benjamin Harrison. Then after the first term of Benjamin Harrison, he came again and won and defeated the same Benjamin Harrison. So Trump is a man with these special attributes. Though many didn't like him because of his policies, but that is his person. That is his character.
So you are saying possibly he could come back and win?
I see him coming back and winning. I see.
Okay, so to you, his style may appeal to a huge number of Americans.
No,
I mean, talking about his style of administration, because it takes the electorate or it takes the college, to bring him aboard. So if it doesn't appeal to the Americans, how will he possibly win?
Whether it appeals to the Americans or not, just now, America needs his lack. They need that character.
Okay.
Because so far, Biden, to some of them, is slow. To some of them, is not active. To some of them, is not proactive. But we had a man once upon a time who was extra proactive.
Okay.
That is the man called Trump. So I see Trump coming again and succeeding.
Okay. I was going through a post. I don't know if he was really empathizing with the President Joe Biden or sympathizing when he said, over his falling off from the bicycle, that he heard about that. And do you see, like he said, concerning what the style or presentation of administration, do you see him as one who, if he had a chance, to come back again, he may do a lot that even Joe Biden isn't doing? And what do you make about the post credited to Donald Trump as what he said about Joe Biden?
From Trump's history, he's a man that suffers from deficit in terms of empathy. So any show of such is for the convenience of the moment. And even in that, at that point in time, you don't need expertise in parapsychology to see that it is empty, it is devoid of emotions, even if it's supposed to be a display of empathy. Now, I disagree with him. I agree with a number of his wonderful viewpoints from the outset, but the last set of statements that gave some great credit to Trump, I take exception to quite a number of them, personally.
Because you don't admire his person, or let's say his style of administration?
No, I think for me it's not about admiring his style of administration, his person. In running government, there are basics. It is about the people. So in whatever you do, it must conform to certain fundamentals that reflect the essence of general good, and not your personal ego being massaged or garbed in one way or the other. That's why I said it's not about whether I like his person or don't like his person. The guy is a very ambitious man, like our friend Justin. He's a dangerous
and smart man.
He's dangerously smart. I think that's the way I like to put it.
Okay.
Now, in comparing him with Biden, Trump, to a large extent, takes so much blame for the so-called the Russian-Ukraine war. If there's anything that Putin would have been so excited about, was a Trump presidency. An American president that for the first time in the history of the United States stood before not an ally but a rival nation's president and gave credence to the security reports or the opinion of the nation's president against the security report he has from his intelligence agencies, related about the best the world over. We all witnessed it in it was in Zelensky, the other place now in Europe, where he had a press conference with Putin, where they met during his time as president. And even the security men were shocked. Till tomorrow, when he wanted to hold a meeting, the private discourse or so-called, with the Russian president, he didn't want Americans to be part of it. And that's against the protocol of the state. Okay, see all the stuff that is brought to the fore presently. In American history, they've not seen such. A president that, as much as possible, destroys records so that there will be no trace or any way to get at it. Now, I have a personal conviction that if Trump succeeds in coming back, it's not America that is endangered. It is the world at large. Because Trump, as a president, is a dictator. And democracy abhors dictatorship. Democracy is a rule of the people.
But don't you think he would have been able to do anything as that? Because he's been checked.
No.
And don't forget, America has an institution that checks itself.
Let me learn. America did not anticipate Trump. That's why I told you, the extent to which he has gone was not anticipated. It has never happened in the history of America. Because he has no restraint. I think just that he doesn't even have shame. So there's nothing that holds him back from doing whatever he chooses to do. There was a report recently where these January 6th committee is holding their hearings. Some of Trump's senior aides that have come to speak have affirmed very clearly how at some point in time the guy was shocked about the limitations of his powers. Because he felt as a president, he could give life and take life. But for the fact that the American system has some form of restraints, to a large extent, I'm trying to recall the name of the philosopher that propounded the theory of separation of powers. It just skipped my mind. The French philosopher.
Montesquieu.
Yes. Baron de Montesquieu. No, Baron de Montesquieu, of course, in his proposition on the theory of separation of powers, is found. Is given due expression by the American system. Now, that was what saved America to the extent it has been saved, but it's not fully saved because when Trump comes back, Trump will upturn the system. Okay, see election fraud he talked about. In less than 3 months, from state courts to appeal court to Supreme Court in America, threw away more than 50 cases that he brought against the state or alleging that election was rigged. Now, see the funny story. Why is he on air saying that the election was rigged? He's talking about the evidence. When his lawyers take the case to court, they don't write in on those things because they know they are not true. Go and read all the judgments and rulings given from the state's high courts to appeal court to Supreme Court in the United States. Over 50 cases. And the judge will normally be shocked. What you put here is infantile. It is of no consequence. And there's no evidence to overuse it. So I'm not telling you that it will not come back. Secondly, there's a provision in the American Constitution. The third section, the section 3 of the 14th Amendment. That section was coined after the Civil War, targeted at the Confederate States to ensure that they are not able to come back and threaten the livelihood or the concept of nationhood as it pertains to America. It has never been considered before now. But because of Trump, that section is being looked at presently. And I can bet on the fact that as much as people are happy that Trump is coming back, I believe 100% that the legal system will restrain Trump, because that law states that anybody who has held political office and uses the office in quotes in the course of his service towards the path of rebellion or inciting people against the state must not be allowed to contest for office or hold any office in the history of America. And check out the judgments that have come so far. Even his immediate, the male that was moving for giving him advice to do one stuff or the other. See, what's his name? The former New York mayor. His license has been suspended from New York for so long. In fact, there is anticipation that he may be banned permanently from practicing. The other lawyer, I can't recall his name presently. That one, because he knew what he did in the course of the insurrection, before Trump left, he was appealing to Trump to pardon him ahead. So if there was nothing fishy, why would people were telling him, go ahead, take over, there's nothing that will happen? They are not going back to ask for pardon because they knew they contravened the laws of the state. So I'm telling you that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution is going to, by all pointers, as the cases are ongoing presently, hold Trump back, not just Trump, a number of others from participating in 2024 election. Okay, good to know that you are a custodian of the law. So he just quoted a section. That is and what do you make of this? What's your reaction?
It is only speculative. To the extent that the laws are there, just like you rightly pointed out, the American system checkmates itself. So whether in his thinking or in his thoughts that Trump felt that he could give life and take life, that may not be correct. The man Trump, like I appropriately described him from the outset of my discussion, is that the man is a comic character. And when I say comic character, it's relative.
Okay.
You can give it any interpretation you want. But some of us have sat down, I am not a fan of Trump, but I sat down to look at the man as a person and his policy. Though, to some extent, the man contradicted the policies as laid down by the founding fathers of America. He did. But that is because of his character. Now, Trump is a man that, if he were to be the president of America just now, I bet you, the Russian-Ukrainian war would not have happened.
So, meaning what you are saying is that what he said concerning if he comes up as a president, but eventually comes up, it's going to be a threat to the world. That means you are seeing it that it's not going to be a threat.
It's not going to be a threat. You know why?
Rather, it will be on the positive side.
Yes, because America has a system that checkmates itself. Unlike other parts of the world, the Russia we are talking today, Russia does not have a system that checkmates itself. The president is seen as supreme. He is seen as above the law. And that's why Putin took advantage of that. But in America, you cannot. The judiciary is so active, he opined. All the cases Trump went for, he lost. Imagine that. If the system does not checkmate itself, somebody like Trump would have succeeded. Trump does not even have the power to amend those laws to suit his whims and caprices. He does not. Because the system is proper, the system is well-founded, the system is appropriate at a particular time. So the system is dynamic. That's why the system can fit into any circumstances it finds itself. Unlike in other parts of the world, particularly where we are just now in this country. So Trump, as a man, is somebody that so many persons don't like him because of his character. But that is his character. That is his person.
You just said so many.
So many.
So if we are to put that on the table, and,
so many,
and if that is to be tested on the day of election,
so many are not Americans.
Okay.
So many, particularly the Arab world, they saw him as a threat. They saw him as somebody who does not want them to achieve what they want to achieve. But so far, when he was the president of America, the man checkmated them. Now, as it stands just now, the Arab world is feeling, they are celebrating the Ulabalu. They are so much in a euphoria of their own.
Okay, but aren't you worried about the insurrection that took place in January 6th at the Capitol Hills? Aren't you worried about the investigations, about the inquiry, or what may amount to litigations? Wouldn't that be capable of, giving sanction or preventing him from even contesting? Aren't you taking in that line?
That is why I say that the American system checkmates itself. If the man was found guilty of all of that, the system will not allow him to even emerge. The system has a way of checkmating him. But if it does, it means that what some of us are thinking about the personality of the man called Trump, it may not be correct. May not be correct. America needs him just now. I am not his advocate. But I think with what the world is going through just now, if not the systematic display of NATO and America as it stands just now, the world would be experiencing a third world war.
Okay, though you are not his advocate, but you seem to support what the advocate would have said.
Yes, that's I want to balance the equation.
Okay.
I want to balance it. But then, also, if the man were to be in power, the war wouldn't have started. Because he has so much influence on even Putin.
Okay, but again, aren't you worried about some of his programs and policies that the world saw as not being liberal enough?
I am worried as a black man because most black felt and still feels that his policies are anti-black. But I look at it on a positive ground. If this man's policies are anti-black, then the man is telling me, go and prepare your home. Go and prepare your home. You cannot leave your home and run here or get entrance here to enjoy what some other persons prepared. So we should learn as Africans. We should learn of how to prepare our home, how to make our home great. Not relying on other persons' home. Recently, see some of Nigerian students who were in Ukraine because of the outbreak of the war. What happened? They are all back home. Here in Nigeria, ASU is on strike. No school to go. And nobody is saying anything. And we are talking about Trump. his policies.
Thank you.
The policies all over, particularly in Africa, is also hostile to the people. And nobody cares. We now see it as a norm.
Okay.
That's why Trump is a...
In case you're just watching us, it's International Forum, and we are looking at Donald Trump and the move to run for president in 2024. I've been speaking with political scientist or analyst Frank Ehiosun, and also a legal practitioner, INT'L Obakbolo. Well, let me ask you this kind of question, Frank.
Please, before you ask me,
you want to react?
You gave him so much luxury to opine and balance at the same time.
Because I know I'll be coming back to you.
You're supposed to balance the view.
Because I know I'll be coming back.
You have the image of balancing it.
Yes. I know I'll be coming back to you. And basically, you made mention of the fact that there are, he will be a threat to the world.
And let me tell you.
In what way? And what are your reactions to what he said?
Very quickly.
Okay.
But for Trump's loss in 2020, NATO would have been dead by now. Don't we watch the news? Trump, the bulk of, under Trump, Macron and Merkel, and the other leaders from Europe, the only people were forming their own union because they looked at the fact that America was going the other way. That's why I told you that Russia was the happiest for Trump's candidacy. Trump did not want NATO to keep on. Trump doesn't understand NATO. Let me put something very clear. Trump came from the standpoint of being this guy that is so braggadocious, without being schooled in the fundamentals of political dynamism.
Really?
Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the former president of the United States, who served 3 terms, he lasted in a wheelchair, is given credit for introducing what the whole world enjoys today that we call the world order. And that world order gained momentum in 1945 under the leadership of the University of America. It was in response to what happened because America did not take the League of Nations very seriously. We're not part of it. That was what led to the First World War, where Hitler was not tamed when he was supposed to be checked. And Second World War came up, more than 50 million lives were lost. In the First World War, people were lost to the tune of about 20 million or so lives. So after the Second World War, General Roosevelt, having invested so much, because America was the nation that put a seal on that war. Russia, that we are talking about today, Russians lost more than 20 million people in Second World War. Ukraine alone lost no less than about 3 million or thereabout. As at that time, they lost the bulk of their population. So America instituted under the leadership of Franklin Roosevelt what you now call North Atlantic Treaty Organization. That has guaranteed the world order we have enjoyed for almost a century. And Trump came up from the blues. Trump wanted to cut off NATO completely. If not for NATO, people are rejoicing that the fact that Russia even attempted to strike was like a unifying factor that brought NATO back together. Russia is a very big country. The whole of Europe put together is not to half of Russia. And still, they are still overly ambitious. The Ukraine they are fighting today, they ruled that country for almost 300 years. Even for the Biden approach, that's why I said Trump is, if you look at Trump from the standpoint of his political, he doesn't have any political ideology, unfortunately. The people like him in America.
He doesn't have any political ideology.
No, doesn't. He's actually...
But does his party, does it have a political ideology?
Beautiful.
His party has a political ideology.
So don't you see the political ideology playing in his policies, in his administration?
But don't you hear...
So it would be vague if you say that it doesn't have
in America, his party ideology. It's not individual ideology.
No, but Republican ideology is already lost to what is happening. Everything that Trump is representing today is quite un-American. But you hear from the core Republicans,
okay.
Right now, the bulk of Republicans are following Trump, not because he's identifying with what they stand for.
Okay, thank you very much.
You
will continue on this after this short break. It's International Forum, and we're going to be expanding the discussion after this break. Do stay with us. Thank you once more for joining us on International Forum. I still have with me Frank Ehiosun, a political analyst, and INT'L Obakbolo, a legal practitioner. Before the break, Frank Ehiosun had the floor. So round up on your point.
Yeah, I was. For me, this discourse is very vital to the survival of humanity, because whatever happens in America is quite of consequence to the world at large. As it is today, America stands as, informally they call them the world police, because they led that world order. In the history of mankind, the past century has been the most peaceful. Credit goes to the world order championed by Franklin Roosevelt. Go and study the 17th century, 18th century, 12th century, 9th century, even 19th century. We had like wars per second. So, but under this ideal, this world order, there has been relative peace, even when the world has more dangerous weapons. Russia doesn't want that order to continue. That's why Russia did its best to ensure that Trump... Okay, three of Trump's very close senior aides were indicted for offenses over their ties to Russia in support of Trump. How do you speak to the fact that the alliance between Trump and Putin is not less in the interest of America? When you say Trump he has action. He's the one that gave North Korean king, so-called, Kim Jong-un. He went there to visit him and gave the guy the credit he did not deserve. Trump likes dictators. And after that visit, Kim Jong-un began to produce more dangerous ICBMs.
Well, listening to you for too long, could make someone have a very bad, a perception about Trump. So I think it will do off a lot of medicine.
Okay, please let me allow this last piece. Yes, this last piece. As much as you say this about me, his former national security officer has written a book. His niece has written a book. His VP's aides are talking. Some of his aides are confessing. If people around him, who were his closest pals, are writing about him that this is who he is, should I be the one so distant who views him from the prism of basically political, as in analysis or interface?
Okay, now Americans are watching, and a lot that happened in his time, bet you, a lot of Americans are also not happy, with his policies. But what do you see him as up against if he's to run for this election in 2024?
Yes, the man is going to... Trump has always swim against the tide. He swam against
Starting with the party, the Republican Party.
He's a dangerous man.
Yes, he has always. And if you go to history, and particularly American history, we've had some former president of America who swam against the tide like him. Like the George Bush, the Bush family. They swam against the tide. One ideology that an average American president has is first to secure the states called America. They secure America, no matter what, because they see America as the ultimate. After God is America.
Okay, but him coming in that case, don't you think America will be on a bad spot? Because you look at the threats that he said would be to the world, and then you look at the superpowers even ganging up against the world police, as America has been called. So wouldn't that be a fight that he would have started that would make the world look at him as the reason for all of the mess that came upon it?
All his opinion is super his opinion. The man called America. You see, when immediately Trump left, Afghans are missing the man to date.
Not Americans. You said
Afghans are missing him.
He was the one that signed the law that ensured that Biden.
You know what?
Will not do anything.
Whatever he's saying, you just take note. Okay, you can react when you have the time. But he has the law.
He signed law, but did not evacuate American military from Afghanistan. He did not. You know, when the legislature in America, see, their system is super correct. They have a system.
So you can put a dummy there and it will run itself. Is that what you are saying?
The system will run itself. The system will correct itself. That's why, like you did ask whether it's party policy or individualistic policy. We've come to agree that in America it's party policy. So the political school you belong to matters more than you as an individual. So they have a system that corrects itself. And immediately the man left, not so long. See what happened in Afghanistan. To the extent that today, an average Afghan is battling to survive. And that's why recently, I saw them shouting, oh, if Trump were to be here. Because the man has a way of bringing those. Yes, people say he aligned so much with dictators. But the man has a way of bringing the dictators near him and suppress that the dictatorial attribute so that they will not explode. The North Korean man we talk about.
So he can put all of those dictators on check.
Yes, the man has that ability.
To the advantage of the world.
Advantage of the world.
So you are saying that he is coming back will bring peace.
That is just it.
All right.
The peace
I don't know how this we found out.
The peace that the world is not experiencing just now.
Okay.
That man would have secured it.
Okay, but do you also agree that if it comes on board, there could be crisis of war? Do you agree?
I do not
And
agree.
can you get peace through that?
I do not agree.
Okay.
Because the times we find ourselves now is a perilous period. To the extent that the whole world is in confusion. But with this man, while he was there some time ago, he was able to checkmate that. And the world enjoyed relative peace. Some of those threats to the world, individuals that were threats to the world, people like Soleimani of Iran, Iraq and all those, see what the man did to them. He was able to put them where they belong.
Okay, do you
so
agree?
the man Trump is a special character.
Okay, let's get your reaction.
Of course, I don't agree. First of all, there was something he said that we agree that it's the ideology of political parties that runs the system. He said we agree. I wasn't a party to that discourse.
So you are dissociating yourself from that?
Definitely.
You don't agree?
Definitely. Now, the fact that he's hailing the American system so much, listen to Americans in the past few years. Paul Ryan, the former Speaker of American Congress, he didn't leave politics because he wanted to leave. He left politics because Trump's ideal was overtaking the Republican identity. There are so many people, key Republicans, who from their generations past have been ideologues as Republicans, who today have withdrawn to the base. Not because of anything, because they don't want to do things. They don't want to come out and be castigating a party, a government that's supposed to be part of their, in quote, their party. But because the government does not represent the ideal of the party. Secondly, when you say Trump in Afghanistan, when he was campaigning, he said it. When he became president, he executed it. When Trump signed the law, he put May, he fixed a date, May 31st, 2020. Is it 2020 now? Yeah, 2021, for American soldiers to live there. It was difficult for Biden. Biden even tried to extend it a little.
So you mean he implemented it?
See, he fixed the date, he implemented it. Before he left, they have
I guess what you said.
Let me tell you. Okay. Before he left, more than, not 2,000, not 5,000 American soldiers, they were coming in batches. And he fixed the time they were going to remove the last soldier from Afghan. Biden was in a fix. Biden knows the effect of American international diplomacy going in terms of usage of their military might. But the law has been signed, and American generals have been a bit tired about American soldiers fighting abroad. And that Trump's American First was one of the first things that was going to work against America. Because in the pursuit of American First, America will be considered in America and not be doing what it does in the other part of the world. Okay. Not knowing that what makes America America is because of the prestige, the reputation it gets from what it can do in other parts of the world. Yeah. And there are so many powers that are ready to take over. China is by the corner.
So you mean that would have dwindled down his popularity?
It would have. Right now, America is competing. America is competing. If not for the fact that Biden was able to re-energize NATO, and to a large extent, American supremacy is still being enforced, even if China remains a threat by the side and Russia is doing what it's doing. So credit be given to a man who came to do things to the contrary. Take his records. There's no contesting that fact. That is basic. So I have said before that for Trump to come back, if we say Americans like Trump, there are two things about the Republicans and even the conservatives, the evangelicals in America. That's why I say Trump is dangerously smart. He made some promises. And a number of those promises pertain to what the core Americans want. The white Americans, in quotes. Because there's an innate fear in America today. That's the truth. Because these are people that used to be in charge of the entire system. They oppress the minorities. Okay. But the greatest fear in America now is that the majority is about to become minority. And Trump took advantage of that. That's why I said the latent, as in a challenge that they had. Trump woke it up. The Americans are scared because the Latinos, the blacks, the population right now, by projection, in the next few decades, the Americans will be minorities in their own country. That is why you see them towing those lines. Then secondly, the evangelicals, they are concerned. I'm a leftist, but I'm a leftist more to the center, not an extreme leftist. So I don't buy some of the extreme views of the Democrats, where they want to take liberty to the extreme. In the light of, you know what I mean, the LGBT and some of those things, because if there's no limit to human activity, someday there will be a law saying that men can marry donkeys. So that's why I said, even as a leftist, there are some things about the left that I don't fancy. That is one of the things that Trump took advantage of.
Okay.
Some of the evangelicals that you see coming out are Republicans.
He has succeeded in giving Trump some credit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I say he did that to exploit the people for his own good.
In your final words, he has a lot to contend with, even within his party. What do you see as a stumbling block?
Like I affirmed a while ago, that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, I'm very confident, because he's a law that he's a lawyer, thank God. He affirmed it very clearly that America is driven by laws. They are guided by basics. The system works.
Yes.
When the judgment comes from the court, there's nothing anybody can do.
Okay.
That's why I said it will be obviously by almost all the people that are coming to testify.
Okay. I hope to see that, and we hope to discuss that again on this platform as a reaction of what we transpire over what you just said. You
can go online and watch all the episodes. Okay, you see the direction of argument.
Okay, thank you. So what do you make of this? What do you see? Do you see that as a stumbling block for him within the party?
To an extent, I do. Okay. But I still see him succeed.
Oh. Thank you very much, Emmanuel Obakwalo. Big thanks, Frank Eyosun. We'll do this on the next one. Well, this is what we call it a wrap on International Forum. I'm Philip Omo Gupon. See you on the next one. Goodbye.